Welcome to Ultra Pro Wrestling.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest installment of the Indie Initiative from Insider Gaming. I'm your host, Mike Straw, as always, and this week it's going to be a very fun one for the wrestling fans out there, myself included, as I'm joined by the creator of Ultra Pro Wrestling, Sam Vallely. Sam, thank you so much for joining. I know it's been a hectic whirlwind time for you with the launch of your Kickstarter and everything you've been doing.
It's been it's been different. Thanks for having me on.
So the trailer dropped a few weeks ago. For those that don't know, Ultra Pro Wrestling, let's back it up real quick. Ultra Pro Wrestling is a throwback, a modern throwback to the games like WWF No Mercy and Virtual Pro Wrestling. And because that, at the end of the day, is the games a lot of us grew up with. And this is a, I don't want to say a legacy to it, but it's definitely a spiritual successor, if you will. And the trailer dropped for it a few weeks ago. You launched a Kickstarter for it that has seen so much success. As of today, it's been backed over 50,000 USD, over 40,000 pounds. How has this last bit of time been for you?
Absolutely crazy. Because one thing that was happening with me personally when the Kickstarter launched was we had already kind of arranged, me and my family, my partner's family, her brother lives in New Zealand, and so we'd arranged this big trip to New Zealand because he was getting married. And so it kind of, the end of the trailer was kind of all coming together around the same time. And I decided I was going to work extra hard and try and get the trailer finished so that I could launch it before we went. Because I thought, if the trailer's nearly done and then I have to take 2 weeks away from the trailer, that's just going to drive me nuts. So
yeah, because you're going to sit there thinking about like, oh my god, am I missing out or something?
Yeah, I thought I'm not going to be able to relax. I'm just going to be too high strung thinking about all the stuff that I need to do when I get back. So I thought I want to be able to relax. So I ended up, the few weeks building up to the trailer, I was working from like 9 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the morning. I was getting like no sleep, just constant working on the trailer. We got it finished. We launched it, arranged all the stuff with media, sent out to a bunch of people, and it was all ready to go. And then we launched it, and then I didn't know what happened with it because we started trying as soon as it was launched. It was literally like click launch, and then bags are packed. We get in the car and we start driving. And I remember saying to my partner that, don't tell me anything about it. I just want to let it grow organically, be its own thing. Yeah. And then, I'll just try and enjoy this holiday and relax, and then we'll get back to it. But of course, she was checking in on it, and it got to like the second or third day. See, we were traveling for like 36 hours as well, so that first day and a half just went by anyway. And then as soon as we landed in New Zealand, I slept because I didn't sleep on the plane. I slept for like 20 hours. So we were already into day 3 of the Kickstarter before I was even like conscious of like being able to look at anything anyway. So she was kind of looking at it and she was like saying, do you want to know what it's at? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, because I'm kind of nervous. Like, for all I know, it's
Only if it's good news.
yeah, yeah. So I was kind of trying to guess. I was like, I don't know, maybe 300 is it, maybe sitting at 300. And she's looking and she's like, no, it's more. And I'm like, what? Like 500? Guessing, up and up. But no, so when I first like looked at it, when she told me, it was at 13,000. And I'm like, what? Is it 13,000 already? Like, it absolutely blew my mind. So overwhelming. Yeah, it was emotional because I have been working on this game a long time, and
Yeah.
I didn't even start talking about the game or promoting it on social media until about 6 months ago, something like that. And that was a decision because we thought, well, everything we're gearing towards is this trailer. But if we put out this trailer and no one's there to really share it and stuff like that, I thought we might as well try and feed people a little bit here and there. We'll try and build a little community so that when the trailer's done and ready to launch, we've got people to share it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we about 6 months ago is when we started kind of introducing people to Ultra Pro Wrestling and showing them teasers and stuff. But before that, no one knew about it. I was working on this game completely by myself, in my bedroom. Before I had the office, just in my bedroom working on this, in my spare time as much as I could. And you do start to think, like, is anybody going to care that I'm doing this? Does anyone? I really want this. This is the type of game. Those AKI games, I love those games. This is the type of game that I want, that I've wanted for years. Always wanted a sequel. It's been like more than 20 years. But then you just don't know. You don't know what, and especially the internet can be quite negative sometimes.
No,
So
never. Not once have I ever in my 12 years in this covering this industry has seen the internet negative about a thing.
So I guess I kind of expected negativity. I had the default setting was I expected people were going to shit on it. And so, yeah, I don't know. As much as you're hopeful that it'll do well and that people will like it, you can't help but have that sort of doubt in the back of your mind that people are just going to find reasons to hate it. And so, yeah, so seeing that the amount of money that it raised so fast, and of course, another thing as well is I thought if it is going to do well and if it is going to make money, it's going to be once these big companies like Smack Talks and all these kind of big name companies, once they start to cover it and once they start to promote it, then maybe it'll kind of take off and do well. But that hadn't happened yet. This was all that 30, yeah, that was all before any real kind of media coverage. It was all just because of the trailer that was on YouTube. The trailer got like, I think, 100,000 views in the first few days, and it just absolutely blew up. And the yard that all the money. Yeah,
I've always had this thing, and it's smart from a design sense, because I thought when I saw Ultra Pro Wrestling and seeing it as like a spiritual successor to WCW, NWO, and No Mercy and things like that, I started to think of another wrestling game, Retromania Wrestling, which is a spiritual successor to WrestleFest. And that game, because of everybody loved WrestleFest back in the day, a modern take on that with modern wrestlers and modern looking characters and just better controls and things like that really grabbed people by storm. And that's kind of what I started to see with this. Is I've always had this mindset that nostalgia is a hell of a drug, right? If people get a chance to relive what they were used to, but in a modern sense, it's why remasters and remakes are doing so well nowadays in the gaming industry. And seeing this, I'm going immediately. My thought was, when I watched that trailer, I felt back to when I was a kid and I'm playing WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy and NWO Revenge. And then I'm watching it and I'm going, okay, the nostalgia is great. What is going to stand out with this game to make it different? And then I looked up more research in the game, and I saw you've been working on this for close to a decade at this point, ran into issues. It went on the back burner, and we'll get into more of that in a minute. But when you were deciding, okay, I'm really going to start pushing this, and make this a thing. Obviously, the goal is to not just rely on nostalgia, it's to stand out. What were you thinking about trying to stand out in an industry where there's so many games, especially now with wrestling games? We're seeing on a verge of a resurgence of independent wrestling games, which is great for fans, great for us, but you still have to do something to stand out. So what were you trying to figure out, like ways you're going to make this game stand out?
Well, I mean, in terms of nostalgia, that's actually something I've seriously thought about, because there is a danger that nostalgia can wear off, and that people, when you see something that gives you that feeling of nostalgia, it can have an instant kind of, oh, that's cool. But if that thing has a nostalgia but that doesn't hold up, that doesn't like sort of maintain your interest, it can go down. And so, I look at other games, then I'm trying to think of an example, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game that just came out, very retro take, and it's like, and I'm not saying anything about that game specifically, but just as an example, maybe a game like that could come out and people could get that instantaneous nostalgia burst. But once they actually start playing the game, maybe they say, "Oh, yeah, it is a bit dated, it is a bit old. Like, we'll play it for a day, but then
one game
that nostalgia,
Streets of Rage 4 came out, and the nostalgia hit me. But the thing is with that, they did it right. They managed to make that a modern feeling. They did it really right with Streets of Rage 4. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So yeah, the nostalgia thing's tricky. But one thing that convinced me that a sort of remake or a reimagining of those AKI games, one thing that makes me think that it actually would hold up is the fact that there are actually still a large group of people, the modding community, that to this day still play No Mercy. Yep. And so they're not, it's not necessarily just a game that hits those nostalgia feels. There are people that maintain that it is the best game, it is the best wrestling engine. So nostalgia aside, it holds up as a wrestling engine. And if you go to Google and type in best wrestling game, every website, No Mercy is right up there all the time. It's always either number one or number two or maybe number three, but it's always right up there and always has been. So yeah, that made me think that even if the nostalgia sort of buzz doesn't hit people or hits people initially, but then wears off, I know that game engine's good. I know that game engine will hold up because it has. It's still, people still play it today. But of course, what do we do to make it different from No Mercy? Well, it's funny. I think that game developers have that mentality of, we can't just straight copy that game engine. We have to put our own spin on it. We have to make it different. We have to make it wildly different, but still maintain some of the elements.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that's been a problem for No Mercy, because there's been a lot of wrestling games where the developers have said that they're going to be inspired by No Mercy, and that those No Mercy fans get really excited and they think we're going to have a sort of spiritual successor to No Mercy. But then by the time the game comes out, they've changed just too much that it no longer resembles what the fans were expecting they were going to play. So actually, it's our intention to try and not change too much, because I don't want to let people down. I don't want people expecting that this is going to be a spiritual successor, and then they get it and it's not what they thought it was, because they want No Mercy. So in terms of the way the game will play, even like the sort of proportions of the characters, the creator wrestler aspect, just everything, is so much of it is derived from the animations, of course, as well. We're trying to create them in a way that is almost indistinguishable from those original animations, because that's actually what we know people want. And me being one of those people, I want a remake of No Mercy, but that's never going to happen.
No,
I want a sequel to No Mercy, but it's never going to happen. And I want the reason I want a remake and a sequel of No Mercy, and why I wouldn't just go back and play those games, even though I do, but what you actually want is modern day technology applied to it. So such as the online mode. Before I started making this game, my dream game was No Mercy, but with an online mode, because the multiplayer aspect of No Mercy was yeah, that was just the best. You know, playing
Yep.
with your friend, because of the way the skill level worked, and you could have these 40-minute matches where everything's getting reversed. That's great if you've got a friend next to you playing the N64 with you, and you can have those epic battles. But if you don't have that friend with you and you're just by yourself, you know, nowadays in this day and age, you have the internet, you have the online mode, and uh, you can be paired with people of equal skill. That's what I wanted from a No Mercy remake. But again, that's never going to happen. So eventually, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. We'll call it whatever we have to call it. The characters will be whatever they have to be. It's the game engine. It's the important thing.
Now, we had, like, when we're looking at the character design, one of the things that stood out is that you kind of went with the inspiration from the Disney Infinity type of design. Was that done, or is that being done because with a lot of games, modern graphics, they might not age well, but this type of, I don't want to say simplistic art style, this type of style, you think will, as the game, when game comes out, as it moves forward and people are playing it for a while and whatnot, it'll age pretty well. Was that in that decision process, or what went into that?
So there's been a few good reasons to use that sort of style, but one, I'd say the starting point for using that style is the creator wrestler. If we go for realism, and to be fair, the WWE 2K games nowadays, like the latest one, if you create a wrestler in those games, they look pretty good. But a couple of years ago, if you created a wrestler in those games, it was very obvious that that was a created wrestler. It didn't look like that character fit with, you know, John Cena and Randy Orton. You'd have John Cena and Randy Orton standing here, and then you'd have your created, I don't know, just any character that's created stuck out like a sore thumb, just didn't belong. It looked very much like a created wrestler. And of course, our ability as a small independent studio to make realistic graphics, you know, we're not going to be able to make our created wrestlers look. We're barely going to make our real wrestlers look good. You know, never mind the created wrestlers. But I never really played the Fire Pro games, but I knew enough about Fire Pro to know that you create a wrestler in Fire Pro, and it looks like it belongs.
Yeah,
you know,
yep.
you create Bret Hart in Fire Pro, it looks like he belongs there. So that was the inspiration behind, if we have a sort of Disney Infinity style, then people can create their own wrestlers, and they should look like they fit. Like if you spend a bit of time creating a Bret Hart, he should look like he was made by the developer. He was made to be in the game. So that was the initial intention behind that. But you know what, you go on as well, and you think, well, because they're lower poly, these models, they're not hyper realistic like the WWE ones. That makes it more likely that we'll be able to fit more characters on screen, which is also another great reason to use those lower poly models, because you know you want those epic Royal Rumble matches with
100%.
And I know the WWE games, they can now get, I think, is it 6 or maybe 8 characters?
8, I believe.
8. So yeah, but I mean, is that their limit? Can you do, you know, what would happen to that game engine if they did 10, you know? But whereas with us, with this lower poly model, hopefully we'll be able to do that, and you know, there won't be a drop in for frame rate or anything like that. And so you'll be able to have, and I'm not saying at this stage how many characters we will have, but
yeah,
the intention is that we'll be able to have a lot. So
yeah, the overall aspect of the game, like the gameplay, you want it to feel similar. You don't want to do too much. You the low poly, but you are doing things that stand out with the different promotions. So you'll also have the 6-sided ring, different sized rings for like independents versus the big leagues, the MMA, octagon, like that type of stuff. How important was it to you to give players these types of options? And I'll let you answer that, and then I'll have a follow up on that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not really coming at it from a developer point of view. I'm not looking at it and saying, what can I as a developer make for this game that would be easy and that we'd be able to package this product and sell it, and maybe further down the line, we'll have a DLC with a six-sided ring. I'm not looking at it like that. I'm looking at it from the perspective of a wrestling fan, of what I want to have in the game, and I want to be able to play in that six-sided ring. I want to be able to play with the steel cage and even the MMA environment like that. So because I want that so much, I'm happy to spend all the extra hours doing that and putting that in there. And yeah, I do think it is important to be able to show people as well that, because some people have said, and some people will say, if this is going to be so close in terms of gameplay to No Mercy, why not just play No Mercy? And I'd point to, well, the online mode, you can't do that with No Mercy. But yeah, all these other elements, the six-sided ring, can't do that with No Mercy. I think there are mods where they have like Hell in a Cell and stuff like that now. But yeah, I mean, obviously those are modded versions of the game. They're not really supposed to be in there. They might not function correctly. Whereas making this game from scratch, we can have everything in that all those fans would want to be in there and have them function properly, no bugs and all that stuff.
Obviously, you have your goals on Kickstarter and the milestones and things like that, but how do you? There's always that fine line of making sure you can build what you want to build without possibly over promising and then under delivering. How do you find that balance, or how are you guys finding that balance to make sure that what you guys want are talking about adding, you can actually add, versus what you hope to add that might not be possible?
Yeah, I mean, and there is lots of things that we'd like to add, but we don't have any sort of calculation on how long that would take and all that. Like, for instance, people ask about a Booker mode. That's something that I want, but it's not something that we're going to be able to work on at this stage to include it in the final version. So all the features that we've listed on the Kickstarter as being features that will be in the initial release, almost all of these things are features that we've already been working on, that they're already so far in development. The creator wrestler, because the game's so heavily focused on the creation aspect, I knew right away that I wasn't going to be able to, create a couple of characters, create a couple more characters, and then go back and make a creator wrestler mode. I knew the creator wrestler mode had to come first, because every character in the game has to be derived from that mode. So a lot has been spent on the creator wrestler mode. I can't say that it's nearly finished, because there's still a lot to do with it. We need to all the move list, the move selection stuff, and applying all that needs to be done. But yeah, we've got the creator wrestler mode, the creator promotion mode. We've got a very, very base, in terms of programming, we've got a very base level application for the career mode. A lot of work needs done to that, but yeah, in terms of pricing it up, we just go through what we already have in the game, how long roughly we know it will take to finish these things. And as an independent team, it is hard to get those calculations right. Luckily, one of the biggest things about the game is the animations. You go through those old games, and we've actually went through them and listed every single animation that's in those AKI games. And there's over 1,000, and you don't really realize that when you're just playing the game. You don't really realize how many animations are in there, but when you've got it all written down and you go, there's over 1,000 moves here, that's crazy, that's a lot. But we're able to break it up. We know exactly the time length of every single move. We know exactly how many frames every single move consists of, and so when we know that, we're able to get a pretty good, accurate estimate of how long it's going to take us to go through every single move and recreate it. So we can translate that into actual man hours. Everyone that's going to be working on this game, because right now, it's me and a couple of friends. and the friends, they're not full-time employees. They just kind of help me out when they can. But with the success of the Kickstarter, these friends of mine are going to be full-time employees. And everyone that's working here is going to be working for minimum wage, because it's not about the money. Money just
Yeah.
helps us. Money just helps us justify doing what we're doing. But even me personally, I've not made any money from this up until in fact, I'm actually in debt because of the office. So, but when it comes to the Kickstarter, when that's finished, and the money's there to be distributed, I'm actually only going to pay myself a 9 to 5 salary for 3 days out of a week, and I'm going to work 7 days a week on this. So there's that's taken into consideration as well with all the calculations we've made, because some people look at the Kickstarter and they say, in terms of game development, this isn't actually a lot of money. It's actually not too much money in terms of what it takes to bring a game to market, and
Yeah.
it's true. But you take into consideration the fact that I'm not going to be working. I'm not going to be paying myself a full-time wage. I'm going to be working 7 days a week, but I'm only going to be taking home like enough to sort of make sure I'm not I'm not starving to death. But
Yeah.
and then the friends I've got working, they understand the situation. They understand how hard it is to get this game out and how tight money is. So they're happy to do it at minimum wage. And actually, some of them have jobs right now that pay more than minimum wage, but they are going to quit those jobs to
So
work for minimum wage to do this.
it's clear it's a passion project, obviously, for you and your friends. Like, this is what you guys want to do. And that's one of the things when it comes to just seeing you guys and seeing what developers go through. The amount of work that goes into this, and obviously you're going to have naysayers and critics who are going to complain about everything. But when it comes to the toll, is there any, do you ever go through these moments when you're working on this where you have any sort of second guessing or regret? I don't want, regret might be too strong a word, but any second guessing about, like, are you doing the right thing with this?
Definitely no regret, because I would not be doing anything else right now. This is, yeah. In terms of second guessing, there was actually a period of that, but that was more so because the game initially, when I started in development 7 years ago, as I'm sure you've heard me say on other places,
Yep.
it started off with this conjunction with this company, and so when that all ended, I had lots of doubt about whether or not people would be interested in this game without the names associated with it, without all the characters, without all the real world personalities associated with it. But then once that 2 year stint where this game was on the shelf, once that all passed, and I decided that I didn't want to do anything else. There's nothing else that can grab my attention. This is it. Ever since then, oddly enough, I haven't actually not once have I wavered on whether or not this was the right decision. Because I've always thought, even if no one buys it, even if it ends up being like it's a flop or a failure, and I'm the only one that enjoys it, I'll be happy. I'll be happy with that, because I know what I want out of it, and I know what I'm doing and what I'm able to achieve with it, and so it doesn't matter to me anything else. This is what I want to do. I'll make this, and even if I'm the only one sitting playing it at the end of the day, I'll be happy. There'll be no regrets and everything. So yeah.
When it comes to, you talked about the creation aspect of the game, how heavily, not heavily, how much ability will it be on the players to be able to mod the game and make it their own?
Yeah, so that's I don't know I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. I don't know if this breaches anything, but that's kind of secretly my goal. I want people to be able to create Bret Hart. I want people to be able to create just everyone throughout history, and also be able to have those characters in the career mode and have it make sense as well.
Yeah.
So that is my kind of behind the scenes intention, is that, so I want people to be able to mod it. we want the community creations. I want people to go on to our community creations and type in Shawn Michaels and find the best one and have it look like, again, like I said, like he was meant to be in the game, like he was designed by the developers to be in the game. Yeah, that's what I want. So of course we're going to give everyone as much freedom to do that as possible. But of course it is difficult because you need to try and navigate through, all the copyright and all the legal stuff. We need to not step on any toes there. So
Yeah,
so
100%. Yeah.
so yeah, there's challenges for, like, how do we then do music? And of course, one solution to that, there's actually a few solutions, but one solution that we came up with quite early was an in-game MIDI file editor. So you can actually just, if someone's got the time and is talented enough, they could spend a few hours, maybe a day, putting together this MIDI file that is just, a particular wrestler's actual entrance music from the 80s, and it just, it won't be perfect because it's a MIDI file. There's no vocals and stuff. But when the guy comes out, and you've got the crowd, and the music's just kind of there in the background, I'm sure that'll be enough to kind of give you that feel and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, so that's the intention with all that.
The overall game, we'll wrap this up so we don't keep you much longer. The overall game itself, I mean, you know what you want. Fans are expecting a certain thing. How do you keep their expectations in check? Because they're going to constantly ask about this, that, and the other. And then how do you make sure they know, like, this is what we're building? So you got to kind of calm down so they don't get over zealous, I guess, and then end up disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to maintain a strong communication with the fans, because although I am building this game for me, I know that sometimes I need to check myself. Like, I need to make sure I don't go too far in one direction, because the goal is for it to be a spiritual successor to those games.
Yeah.
So it's happened before where I've sort of come up with ideas and said, "Oh yeah, I'm sure we can do it this way," and then I'll have someone on Discord that will come in and say, "Actually, no, AKI wouldn't have done it that way, and here's why." And they'll explain to me their point of view of why those AKI games wouldn't have done this thing, and I listen and I go, you know what, you're actually right. You're absolutely right. They wouldn't have done it that way. So there's definitely a sort of a circular, feedback loop.
Yeah.
Well, with those people, and yeah, any new thing that I want to add, like I've said in a few different interviews about the way that the camera works. I've got a couple of ideas of a different way of doing that. But again, it's not that I'm just going to put that in the game and be like, all right, tough, this is the way I want it, so that's the way it's going to be. I'm going to build the system, demo it, show it. If people really don't like it, then I'm happy to scrap it. If the community, especially if it's the people that I know are the true knowledgeable AKI hardcore fans, all the people in the modding community, Retro Randy, and there's a bunch of people there, Melon Bread.
Yeah.
These people are my go-to guys of, we're not quite at that stage yet with the development where I constantly need to be asking them questions, but I'm going to be talking with them as much as I can to get their perspective, because I really do appreciate and respect their perspective. And there, as I said, there has been times where they've course corrected me on things. So yeah, the community will be involved 100%.
So the game, based on the Kickstarter, when you go to the Kickstarter, the plan is estimated delivery of early access later this year. Is the success of the Kickstarter changing that timeline at all, or was that always set based on having success on the Kickstarter?
Yeah, well, it is set on the success, but at the same time, because it's estimates, because it's rough estimates, I feel like the more money that we get, the more, any money that we get, we're going to try and use up as quickly as possible, which means we're going to hire as many people as we can, because as I said, with the animations, we know how long that takes, and so it's going to take that length of time, whether we have one person working on it for a year, or if we have 2 people working on it for half a year, or 3 people, and that's just an example. That's
Yeah.
not rough estimates of the actual time. But yeah, so the more money we have, if we can grab 6 or 7 people that can come in and do the work, who knows how long it could take. We could get all these animations done and finished and out the road, and then that's a huge chunk of the game that would be complete, that then we can sort of focus on other things, and it helps us get that the one-on-one match, which is the early access demo. It's going to be a full playable one-on-one match. As I said, our estimate is for it to be the end of this year. And that is, it's not actually just dependent on the money as well, because we could end up in a position where we have the money, but we can't find the right people to hire. That could be a variable that makes it take longer. So if that's the case, then yeah, end of year, November is that's our sort of worst case scenario deadline. So we're actually hoping that we would get it done a lot sooner.
Yeah.
But we don't want to disappoint people. So if it ends up being November and that ends up being the situation, at least that's what we've said, and then people are not going to be upset about that. They'll be happy about that. But again, if we get all the money that we were asking for, we get more money on top of that. Any extra money on top of it just means we can hire an extra person, and that time just like shrinks. So yeah.
Obviously, and last thing on this, the Kickstarter is a short-term fundraising. Outside of that, if people want to support what you're doing and help and give funds and whatnot, where can they go to help out you guys?
And we have a Patreon account. So yeah, that even if people are able to give to that, just $1 a month, when you get enough people. I mean, we've had 700 people donate to the Kickstarter. If those same 700 people donated $1 a month, that would be huge for us. That'd be all our office expenses. That'd be so much. So even that one avenue, like at $1 is could be huge because of the amount of people involved. So there is that. There's also we might look into merchandise in the future. We've got our web, so possibly we could do t-shirts. In fact, we're now working with Hal Haney, who's quite a reputable artist in the wrestling community. If anyone hasn't seen Hal Haney's work, he's on Instagram, he's on Twitter as well, but go to his Instagram, you'll see all the cool images that he does, the comic books, the mashups, the collaborations, and he's also obviously doing all the characters for Ultra Pro Wrestling. But so I mean, if we can take some of his designs and put them on a t-shirt, that's another revenue stream that would help us. Yeah, I don't know. There is other. We also, I mentioned this on another one as well, but I've not actually mentioned this outside of interviews. I've not mentioned this on Twitter or anything, but there is a possibility that we will be able to get funding from the Scottish government as well. Scottish government
Which
have
would
a
be
thing
huge,
called their thing is called Creative Scotland, and on the 28th of this month, they're going to be launching a campaign in collaboration with Kickstarter. And the idea is that if you, as a Scottish person, which I am, if you can get your Kickstarter funded, it reach a goal and get it fully funded, and it seems like there's enough support behind it, the Scottish government will match fund it up to the amount of 20,000. So if they can do that as well, that's another huge chunk of money that just absolutely helps us out and gets all the work done more. So yeah, there's lots of options. There's lots of ways of raising more money, getting the game done quicker, all that stuff.
Sam, I want to thank you for joining me here today on the Indie Initiative. Ultra Pro Wrestling, you can find more at ultraprowrestling.com, Twitter /UPW video game. The game is in development. When it launches, it will be on Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch. Is there anything, as we wrap this up now, anything else you want fans to know?
I don't know. Just check it out. Follow us on Twitter. We're most active on Twitter. go to the Kickstarter, have a look, see if it's something that you're interested in. If you're a collector like me, I like to collect. If I get a game, I like to unlock everything. One of the things that we're doing with the Kickstarter is we have some unlockable items. Is that the right word? We have some exclusive items like attires and weapons and stuff that you'll only be able to get if you back us on Kickstarter at this point. So check it out and see what you think. And thank you very much.